In 2006, Maranatha sent nearly 100 volunteers to Bass Memorial Academy in Mississippi to help rebuild structures that had been destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. Mel Eisele was the president of the Gulf States region during this time. He saw the impact of Maranatha's mission in the United States. Now that he's retired, he's seeing Maranatha's impact in a new light, as a volunteer.
It's an incredible privilege that I have tonight to be able to share with you a fabulous mission field here in North America. Now, I don't know where I first heard about Maranatha. I do know where I got very much involved with it and where I can't get away from it. It was at Bass Academy in 2005. Now, Bass was about a little over 40 years old in 2005, and it was really getting wore down. So we were starting to plan on rebuilding the academy. And in 2003, we'd put $500,000, and for a small conference, that's a struggle. And 2 years later, in 2005, we put another $500,000 into the girls' dorm. We depleted all of our funds. We didn't have anywhere else to turn. But we knew God wanted that school there. We had calculated the distance to another academy. It's like 450 miles away, so we're looking at a 900-mile stretch there in mid-America, in that part of America, that there is no boarding academy. So we knew God wanted that school there. Those of us that live along the coast, we watch very closely what happens down in the Gulf. And in that August, we were watching, and Katrina was coming, and it started heading our way, and we're praying, hoping that nothing bad would happen, and not really even preparing because we were just sure that it was going to go a different. You never know which way those storms are going to go. So on August 29, we got a video from the academy showing us one of the trees that had fallen down in front campus, and some of the wind that was coming around the campus, and the water was just kind of going just flat. I think the wind was rolling about 130 mile an hour by the time it hit Bass. And we saw off in the distance, over in the west, we saw actually the wall of the inner core of Katrina as it was coming on land. And then everything went dark. Nothing, no communication at all. And so we waited a couple days. The next day we tried to get contact down there, and no contact whatsoever. So I got in the truck and drove down, and I will never forget what I saw when I got on the campus of Bass. I stood there and looked at this campus. There were 17 buildings when the storm hit, and 13 of them were destroyed. 4 of them were standing. 1 of those had damage. And I stood there and looked at those things, and I said, what in the world are we going to do? How in the world? You know, a conference president's job is to kind of put Humpty Dumpty back together again when he falls off the wall. And so how in the world are we going to get this thing going? Because we had depleted all of our funds. But as I stood there and watched and looked around that campus, I said to myself, this just sort of looks like a bomb has dropped here. But something jumped out at me that I will never forget. There were 2 buildings that were absolutely necessary for that school to exist. One was the boys' dorm and the other was the girls' dorm. And we had a cracked window in the girls' dorm and a few shingles missing on the roof. The buildings on both sides of that girls' dorm had to be replaced. The boys' dorm, we had just a few shingles missing. And both buildings on both sides of that dorm were replaced. Now, I was kind of numb. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do. Went home. A couple days later, I'm still in this numb feeling because of the disaster. I drove about 400 miles in total disaster. And it's like, I'm sitting in my office saying, what in the world am I going to do? I don't know whether it was Ken or Kyle called me. One of those 2 guys called me. It's still kind of a blur. Called and said, you know, Maranatha would like to work with you guys to help you put Bass back together. and you will never know how that boosted my spirits. Said, would you come out and talk to us? So I hopped on the plane and came out. Sat down in a big circle. A bunch of high-powered big people were sitting on that end, and I'm all alone down here at this end. And they asked me what I want to do, and so I'm drawing out on the board there what we had dreamed was going to happen at Bass and how Katrina had destroyed it all. And they sat down there all sober-faced while I was talking, and then they huddled around in a little circle and talked for a couple of minutes, and then we were all smiling and said, we want to help you. And you know, I flew back. I flew on Delta, and it was probably, they registered on the plane, it was 32,000 feet, but I was 60 or 70,000 feet. I was flying high, and it wasn't chemically induced. I had hope that somehow we were going to put Bass back together. Now, I want you to see what Bass looks like after Maranatha was finished. 2 fabulous rooms designed and built by the volunteers that came from Maranatha. Incredible. And I'm hoping we built that buildings that it would be standing until Jesus comes. And that's what I'm hoping will happen. Now, through the years since that time, I have been on a number of Maranatha projects and read about a few more. And there are certain things that have stood out in every one of those projects for me. One is that Maranatha, this team, it's an incredible team, comes in and inspires the local people to do things they can't do on their own. I wish I had the time to tell you about a church that started out with 15 or 20 members. A year or so later, the church was built, and now they have 80 members, and the church is totally debt-free. 80 members, 80 people attending. It's an incredible story. Maybe we'll get to hear that again. Maranatha focuses on impoverished people, and that's why I think God blesses in a very special way because of this unique focus. Maranatha's approach is, we want to help. What an incredible approach. And if I were to summarize what I see, the ministry and mission of Maranatha, I would summarize it in this sentence. The passion of Maranatha is that it wants to continue the ministry of Jesus. Now, we were sitting this morning for breakfast in a table. Several of us were sitting there talking, and one of the gentlemen said, I've never been on a Maranatha trip. We'd been talking about some of the projects, and I've never been on a Maranatha trip, but I'd like to go on one. If that's your inclination tonight, I'd like to encourage you. There's 3 ways that you can start being right now active in this incredible ministry we call Maranatha. One is start praying. Look on the website and find the different sites where people are going. Start praying for those sites. The other is come up with a little bit of extra funds. We all squander money like it's going out of style sometimes. Take that money and send it to these sites. Send it to Maranatha. Tell them where you want it to go. It'll get there. The third way is come and be a part of a project. If you're looking for a project and you can't come up with another one, we're starting one in just a few weeks in Alabama at Uchee Pines. And I'm inviting you personally to come. There's still room, I believe. You'll get to work with Roger Hatch and Ed Bergen, 2 of the best guys in the world you're ever going to find. I hope I get to live between them in heaven. These are the guys that are going to lead out in that team. It's a church that desperately, for the last 10 or 15 years, we've hoped they would be able to build. So come and be a part of what we're doing there.